Alright, I figured I would do an update. I promised I would do number 2. And here we are. So everything is pretty much tacked into place, and I've been moving things up and down and adding and removing components just to make sure everything's cool. Right now we're at full stuff over here. And I think the only problem that I ran into, and I do have the I Am Keith bracket is running into the back of this guy, but I think that can be fixed with a little zzz, cut that baby right off. Let's, if you get, so this is, you know, big time. This is, I mean, the track bar is actually contacting, so this is like, you're probably not gonna get to this kind of compression, but I just wanted to go up total full. You can see the track bar is laying up against that cross member. That would be what I would guess what I would consider full stuff, and the stock bump stops would be nailing it. You can see we're short over here on this shock for sure, so we need to give them just a little bit. I think I can get away with 13-inch shocks, so I think I'm gonna pick up a set of 13-inch shocks and give it a try. But being at full stuff, I would like to get a little more up travel on this side, and I think I can do it. I should be able to get to about an inch short. He's hanging. The pinion angle articulating up and down, I ended up with a little more pinion angle, about 5 degrees, and about 1 degree at total stuff. So at about, I think about 4.5 at ride height, and then it goes up from there as you let it droop. Let's take a look at the other side. But and the other part I was kind of worried about was that this is the 80 series bracket arm, and the arms get pretty close. On the other side, I'm way up, and I'll show you what that looks like. It's just barely enough room to get them in there. So those actually the 80 series brackets. That was what I was worried about. I was gonna have to fabricate one of those guys. You can see this guy, this shock over here is almost at 1 inch. So if I fix the other side, I like to leave just maybe an inch or so, because when you really stuff shit out on the trail, a lot of times you get a little more movement than you thought you could. So I'm getting definitely, and here's the stock bumps up. This bracket for the radius arm interferes with that anyways. So actually I do have some fancy pants hydraulic bumps that I need to cut this guy off and fabricate. I don't know if I'm going to do that this year or not, because I don't know that I'm going on a huge trail ride this year. But anyways, let's take a look at that really close. You can see that did get real close, but this is definitely at full stuff. So there's a little teeny bit of room left there, but everything's just tacked in. And I don't think there's going to be any interference. I did have to do this. Ooh, let's talk about that just really quick. There's a bunch of guys on the T4R forums who have done this. This is an F-150 gas tank. It's all good, pressure tested. It's all finished. It's all put together. I just need to do the final assembly. Hasn't really been tested, so I hope I did everything right. I think I did. The filler neck, you do have to modify the filler neck as well, which isn't a hard modification. You can see I just ended up cutting it off right here below this guy and swiveling a 90, and it works out perfect. And I'll just have to run up the other filler vent guy here to this one. Also, not a hard modification. It was real easy to cut this off, real easy to get that bend into there in the right place, and it fits up there just perfect. I did run also hard lines. We can take a quick look at that. Let me get down here and get under. Get out of the way, clamps. So I ran hard lines back all the way up into the corner, and there's the wiring harness. I did a little bit different, and I did some, these are just 3D printed clips, and then I just tack welded on. Let's put that there so I stop messing around. And then there's just, let's see if we can get one of those guys. Like this guy. So then there's just, focus. So then I just welded on some T-nuts up in here, and then these are just ABS 3D printed, but they hold those hard lines really nice. And so this is where the stock fuel tank comes through. And so what I did is I just harvested that plug off another tank and basically just spade connected these guys. There's a ground, a hot, I believe, and then 3 wires for, I don't exactly know, ohms resistance, I think, for the gas gauge. And so hopefully that'll work. So basically I didn't have to cut the stock fuel guy at all. I just basically created an extension cord and then just have some clips and then zip tie certified. But also he's nice and stable with the, I like that those fuel lines are really nice and stable. The high pressure send, this is the high pressure send. I think the middle is the return, and then this is the fuel tank vent that returns up to the vapor canister. And so I didn't really change, those are the stock, this is where the stock ones come in for the stock tank. So all I really did is got some new tubing, might as well replace it, it's 20 years old. And then I ran that other high pressure send all the way up to, see if we can get in there to take a look at that being upside down. Yep, there it is. So there's the, I didn't change the fuel filter location, I just tapped into it and flared some new connectors so that hard line runs all the way back, and it's hooked up via the flex line just like the stock tank is. So basically I just moved everything back. So that actually turned out pretty nice, and hopefully I just need to, and like I said, this is just tacked in so I could articulate it around. I don't want to stress it too much because I don't want to bend it. This is actually not the rear axle assembly that I want to use. However, I have a spare one. Everybody needs a spare axle assembly, and so you can see the only kind of inconvenient place that I had to get fuel line stuff is up, and it's inside the top of that spring. So you're not gonna be able to access that without taking out the spring. But that's really that's not even a, that's a minor problem considering the modifications to move the fuel tank back. What else? I don't know. There's really anything else that needed to happen. The AD series bracket, they're just tacked in. They actually just, this is just cleaned off and then they're tacked in. They're actually really easy to do. The other brackets are really kind of a pain in the ass to get rid of, to get them out of the way, but the arms lined up really good and I'm happy with how that turned out. So I'll get everything burnt in and get a coat of epoxy on it and get the truck running. I don't think I'm going to do the bump stops like I said this year. Probably end up doing them next year. I'm kind of fabricated out for this summer. I'll be gone on vacation for a couple weeks anyways. So I think that's that. If you have any questions, just bloop them down in the comments and I'll see if I can answer them. If you want, I'll do a installation of the fuel tank. I did some custom bushings up there that they're spun sideways right now, but it makes it putting the fuel tank in about as easy as a fuel tank is to put in. I've never put in a fuel tank. That's not a huge pain in the ass. But those turned out actually pretty good, and the fuel tank is actually solid as a rock. So hopefully that doesn't give me any trouble, and now I can play with the suspension on this truck a little bit more. I think if we go back, let's go back and take one more look before we stop this guy, just so I can remember. Really, and I haven't cut off the old upper arm stuff yet, and I don't think I'm going to, because if we let this guy go, let him come down, come on, come down. Let this guy come down. The thing that is actually limiting the suspension travel at this point is the droop of the shock, right? And so that's why I think I can get away with a longer travel shock, and I can use those old upper arm mounts with a limit strap because the springs are going to fall out of here. I thought about welding in like a big M12, on the top and the bottom, and then having a spring retainer just so that the springs don't fall out. But we'll see how this works. As soon as you go extra travel, those springs will fall out. What else? I think that's about it for an update. Like I said, if you have any questions or you're interested in it, it was a huge pain in the ass modification to make. However, now I have really the shock and the track, the stock track bar. I didn't do any modifications to it. The stock track bar are really the only limiting factors on suspension travel in the rear now. And hopefully I got everything lined up. It actually, these guys, the whatever hub stand things, and being able to use them and measure and get everything lined up and set the pinion angle, that actually worked really slick. Being able to measure and align the rear axle assembly while you're moving it around is a pretty cool deal, and it made making this project possible. Otherwise, it would have been just a huge pain in the ass. It was a huge pain in the ass anyways, but those hub stands actually worked out pretty good. All right, Slava Ukraini.